Welcome to the deep dive. Think about this for a second. In just 2024, the internet saw over 106 million new domains pop up.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's like, a whole new digital city appearing practically every day.
Yeah.
So with that kind of explosion, how do security teams even start finding the bad actors?
That really is the core challenge, isn't it? You're trying to spot, maybe 395,000 known malicious domains within that massive, massive number. It takes some pretty clever detective work.
And that's where domain intelligence fits in.
Exactly. That's the key.
Because we've got this really fascinating report here that it analyzed this huge wave of new online real estate alongside the known trouble spots.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually uncovered some crucial trends. It's almost like finding a hidden map of where the digital risks are concentrated right now.
So this deep dive is really your shortcut to understanding what's going on beneath the surface. Yeah, our plan today is to sort of unpack that map, look at the tools the researchers actually used, and pull out the key insights that, honestly, anyone online security pros, sure, but even everyday users probably needs to grasp.
Domain intelligence is the compass. I like that.
It helps navigate this, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, before we dive into the real nitty-gritty, just a quick shout-out to our sponsor, www.policyquest.diy. They've got some really useful tools for understanding, the often confusing world of online policies. And for you listening, there's a 15% discount if you use the code PODCAST.
Podcast, good to know.
Definitely worth checking out if you want to get a better handle on the rules of the road online. Okay, let's start digging. What is domain intelligence, really? Why is it so vital with this daily flood of new domains?
Right. So at its heart, domain intelligence is basically like building a dossier on every website address.
Mm-hmm.
You're collecting and analyzing all the information tied to a domain name. So that's registration details. Who owns it, when it was registered, and also where it points on the internet, the IP address, the hosting company, the name servers it uses, even its security certificate.
All that technical background stuff.
Exactly. And for security teams, this stuff is gold. It helps stop spam and phishing by spotting suspicious domains, maybe even before they're actively used. It's critical for incident response, lets teams quickly map out an attacker's infrastructure, helps protect brands by finding fake sites.
Like copycat websites.
Precisely. And it all feeds into understanding the bigger threat landscape, gives us real-time clues about new dangers and how attackers are working.
So it's like piecing together all these digital footprints to see which ones look, dodgy.
That's a good way to put it.
The report mentions retrospective analysis, looking backward. How does that help?
Yeah, think of it like a detective reviewing old case files to understand current criminal methods.
Yeah.
So here, we're looking back at those 106 million new domains and comparing them against the, 395,000 known malicious ones. Find the patterns.
What kind of patterns?
Patterns in behavior, in the technical details. What characteristics did the bad domains typically show in the past? Understanding that lets us build models to flag potentially risky domains now, maybe before they even cause trouble.
I see. Learning from yesterday's attacks to fend off tomorrow's.
You got it. Learning from the past.
It makes total sense. Now, to do this kind of digital investigation, the report used some pretty sophisticated sounding analytical techniques. Can you give us a quick overview?
Sure. It was quite a toolkit. They used domain attribute analysis that's looking at the registration and technical details we just discussed, IPs, hosting, registrars.
Right.
Then website title analysis, examining the text in the browser tab, basically, for keywords suggesting scams or malware.
Like login here or something.
Exactly. Risk scoring assigns a danger level to help prioritize. DGA detection uses statistics to spot algorithmically generated domain names, a common malware trick.
Okay.
Keyword and topic analysis hunts for specific words and domain names linked to different threats. New TLD analysis focuses on those newer web address endings. And IDN homoglyphs and topic likeness analysis looks for domains that visually mimic famous brands or tie into trending topics, classic phishing tactics.
Wow. Okay, that's quite the set of digital forensics tools they threw at it.
Mm-hmm.
So after deploying all that on the 2024 data, what were some of the big headlines?
Well, one really clear finding was just the upward trend in both the sheer number of new domains and the domains flagged as potential threats, all through 2024.
Just going up and up.
Yeah, with noticeable spikes, especially later in the year, daily numbers hitting like 1.5 to 2.5 times the usual average. It just hammers home how the potential attack surface keeps expanding. The report also talks a lot about proximity risk associations.
Okay, what's that?
It means if you see new domains popping up using the same registrars, same ISPs, same name servers, same SSL certificate issuers,
The same underlying infrastructure.
as domains already known to be malicious, well, that raises a red flag. It suggests these new domains might be higher risk, worth a closer look.
Oh, okay.
And analyzing webpage details mail server records, SSL info helps figure out how these potentially bad domains are actually being used.
So if a brand new site appears and it's using some obscure name server that's already linked to a load of phishing scams.
That's a big warning sign, exactly. It's about spotting those connections deep in the internet's plumbing.
Gotcha.
The report also looked into trends in registration and resolution selections. Basically, some providers seem to get used by malicious actors more than others.
Why would that be? Laziness, maybe? Or something else?
Could be a few things. The report suggests maybe some platforms are just, easier to sign up for, simpler process.
Less friction.
Or maybe their systems for catching abuse aren't as strong, letting bad actors kind of slip through more easily. The report even points to stories in the New York Times and the Record about disinformation campaigns using specific registrars.
Oh, right. Showing the real-world impact.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of highlights the tough spot these domain registration companies are in. They have rules to follow, sure, but the sheer volume
Millions of registration
makes it incredibly hard to proactively police everything. It's a shared responsibility, but finding the needles in that giant haystack is tough.
Okay, so we see patterns with individual providers. But what about combinations? The report mentions the convergence of high-risk attributes. What's the story there?
Well, interestingly, when malicious actors combine risky attributes, especially if they use popular common providers, it can actually help them blend in.
Blend in. How?
By using common infrastructure, their bad traffic gets mixed in with loads of normal, legitimate traffic, harder to spot in the noise.
Hiding in plain sight.
Sort of. The report looked at the top 20 providers in each category, registrars, ISPs, name servers, and found they don't always show up together consistently.
So it's not like there's one specific bad guy toolkit combination they all use.
Doesn't seem to be one dominant combo, no. But they did find less frequent, but still observable combinations. And those are interesting. They could be pivot points for threat hunters.
Pivot points.
Yeah, like if you spot a new domain with an unusual pairing of, say, registrar and name server that has been linked to bad stuff before, even if rarely, that's definitely something to investigate further.
That's really interesting, like finding an unusual footprint off the main path. Okay, risk scores sound crucial for sorting through millions of domains.
Yeah.
How do they work, and what did the analysis show?
Right, risk scores are vital for prioritization. They're calculated by looking at a whole bunch of those signals we've talked about, suspicious keywords, domain name length, does it look algorithm generated, is it visually similar to a known brand, connections to known bad infrastructure.
All factored together.
Exactly. A higher score means more suspicion. And the report found over 30% of the known malicious domains they studied had the maximum risk score of 100.
Wow, 30% had the top score.
Yeah, which shows these scoring systems can be pretty effective. And digging deeper, they found specific hotspots, particular registrar name server combinations linked to a higher volume of these maximum risk domains.
Any examples?
Yeah, they mentioned NameSilo LLC as the registrar paired with Cloudflare.com name servers and also Domine HK Limited with Aladins.com. These pairings showed up frequently with high-risk domains.
Huh. So even with popular providers, certain combinations are favored. Interesting. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. DGA detection using Shannon entropy. Sounds technical. Break it down for us.
Sure thing. So DGA's domain generation algorithms are basically tools malware uses to automatically create tons, sometimes thousands, of domain names. Often they look random.
Why do that?
It makes it much harder for security to block their command and control servers. If one domain gets blocked, the malware just tries the next one on its huge list.
Constantly moving targets.
Exactly. Now, Shannon entropy is a mathematical way to measure randomness or unpredictability in a string of characters like a domain name.
Okay.
A low entropy score means the name is predictable, maybe repetitive, like bababob.com. A high entropy score suggests it's much more random, like KJH89SDFGASDF.com looks like gibberish.
And that gibberish is often a sign of?
Often a sign of a DGA-generated domain, yeah.
So a website address that looks totally nonsensical might actually be malicious.
It's a strong indicator, yes. The report compared entropy scores for all new domains versus the known malicious ones. While the average scores were similar, the malicious domains were much more concentrated in those very high entropy ranges, suggesting a higher ratio of DGA use among the bad domains.
Right. Not proof alone, but a big red flag.
Context is key, but yeah, high entropy is suspicious.
Sneaky way for malware to hide. Now, new top-level domains, TLDs, the report touches on those too. How do things like .xyz or .shop fit into this? And hey, our sponsor, www.policyquest.diy, uses one of these .ey.
They do, and new TLDs can, well, sometimes pose a challenge. They often trigger big bursts of registrations when they launch.
Right.
And the issue is some older security tools might rely on outdated TLD lists and could potentially miss threats using these newer extensions. The report notes .yy became generally available March 6, 2024, and saw over 2,600 registrations by year-end.
So threat actors might jump on new TLDs.
They're always looking for new ground, new opportunities to exploit, and sometimes a new TLD might offer that, perhaps perceived lower scrutiny initially. It's definitely a reminder to keep security tools updated for the entire domain name system.
Makes sense. And resources like our sponsor, www.policyquest.di, again, 15% off with code podcast, can probably help folks navigate this evolving landscape too.
Absolutely. Staying informed about the whole ecosystem is crucial.
Definitely. Let's talk keywords. Seems like analyzing the actual words in domain names gives clues too.
Oh, for sure. Looking at keywords helps associate domains with specific types of threats. You see login, sign-in, password, often linked to credential harvesting, trying to steal logins. The domains with update, download, install might be pushing malware. And things like phishing, crypto, airdrop frequently pop up in scams and financial fraud domains.
Airdrop, like the Apple feature.
Yeah, the report noted a specific spike in domains using airdrop back in June 2024, likely tied to scams exploiting that term around then.
So tracking keywords lets us see, almost in real time, what tricks attackers are currently favoring.
Pretty much. And it ties into how they exploit major events, too. They create lookalike domains related to big news stories.
To lure people in.
Exactly. The report looked at 180 major 2024 events, things like generative AI developments, global elections, and found lots of related domains popping up, especially around the U.S. elections. They used keyword lists and techniques like Levenstein distance to find similar-looking domains.
Right, capitalizing on public attention. Clever, in a bad way.
Mm.
Okay, finally, the report talks about anomalous domain registration spikes, sudden bursts of new websites. What's that tell us?
These big, sudden surges in new registrations can sometimes signal coordinated, malicious campaigns getting ready to launch.
Like setting up infrastructure.
Could be. The report flagged big spikes in July and November 2024. Using anomaly detection techniques like isolation forest, they could pinpoint domains registered during these spikes that looked irregular, different from the norm.
How different?
For example, on July 3rd, they found about 19% of the new domains registered that day were flagged as irregular.
19%? That's a lot.
It is. And by comparing the types of irregular domains across different spikes using statistical methods like the Kolmogorov-Smirnov tests, they could see if different spikes looked similar.
Suggesting the same actors or a campaign?
Potentially, yes. They found the July 3rd and November 13th spikes looked statistically different, but the July 25th and August 22nd spikes showed similarities, maybe hinting at recurring spam campaigns or something similar behind them.
So these sudden bursts aren't just noise, they're signals if you analyze them right.
Exactly right. And that really brings us back to the core idea, the power of domain intelligence. Understanding these trends, the techniques used to find them, the insights they offer, it gives security pros a much clearer picture of this constantly shifting cyber landscape.
Lets them be more proactive, spot threats earlier.
Precisely. It moves beyond just reacting.
It really underscores that online security is this continuous game of cat and mouse adaptation. And domain intelligence is a critical piece of kit for staying ahead.
Couldn't agree more. And it also highlights how important collaboration is within the security community. Sharing these kinds of insights, the techniques, the observations, it helps everyone raise their defenses.
So for you listening, it's worth thinking about these trends. How might they affect your own online activities, your security posture? Are there steps you can take to be more aware of these domain-related risks?
Yeah, I think this deep dive into the 2024 domain data really hammers home one key point. With new domains emerging constantly and attacker tactics always evolving, understanding domain intelligence isn't a one-off task. It has to be this ongoing process of learning and adapting. Staying informed really is crucial for navigating the digital world safely.